specialized weapons that are made for SWAT to allow us to breach open the door. And there's standards about how many drills you do on shooting, your physical agilities test. It's not just about being physically fit. It's about the commitment that you make. If you pass SWAT school, you should be pretty proud of yourself. Welcome back, Shift Fire. I am Chris the Cop. Today, we're going to be talking about SWAT History Explained, and specifically the birth of SWAT. When police departments were first formed, there were really no tactical teams. It was a host of different events that happened not only in the United States, but also throughout the world that started police departments thinking about tactical teams. Do you have any idea what any of those events that happened?
I'm going to say one of them was probably the North Hollywood robbery.
No, SWAT was already there. Chief Daryl Gates is kind of considered the person who started the first SWAT team under LAPD. There was a host of events that were happening across the United States and the world. So one of those was the Munich Games, the Olympic Games. During the Munich Games, the Jewish athletes were taken hostage. Then coming back to the United States, we had the Texas A&M tower shooting. A Marine who was no longer in the military made it all the way to the top, posing as a custodial person, started shooting downward into the quad of the school. Officers arrived on scene and he had the high ground. He was able to keep them at bay. Eventually, they were able to utilize some tunnels, get up there, and it resulted in an officer-involved shooting, but they were able to neutralize him. But law enforcement started to think, hey, wait a minute, patrol cannot handle these situations. They're not trained to, they don't have the equipment to, we need specialized teams. There's a person, I forget his name, but he presented the idea of a tactical team to Daryl Gates, and he said, yes, let's go with it. And that was the true birth of SWAT. Then they started to say, hey, look, we need to focus on having teams that can handle this type of situations, because patrol just doesn't have the resources, as you know, to handle certain tactical situations. And it was around 1971 where these tactical teams became part of the Metro division at LAPD, and as you know now it's Metro. I mean, when you say I work Metro, everyone knows that, you know, that's SWAT. The teams started off with people that had military experience or tactical experience, and they were volunteering to be on SWAT. Before it became an actual entity, they had 15 four-man teams that were comprising the makeup of what would become LAPD's eventual SWAT team.
I'm sure equipment back in the 60s and 70s was a lot different than what we have now. What was the SWAT team? What did they look like?
One of the television shows that kind of made SWAT popular, and that's actually the TV show SWAT. They were wearing a flak jacket, and they were wearing a blue jumpsuit, a blue baseball cap, and of course their boots. They were armed with M16s. The first SWAT operators were people who had experience. There was no SWAT school like there is today. So these officers were teaching themselves the tactics, because based upon their military experience and other tactical experience, but this is pretty much focusing around the experience that they got in the military. They were utilizing what equipment was available, and a lot of that was just Army surplus stuff, not really made for civilian law enforcement. Now you fast forward today, 21st century, the outer vest is made for us. Most of the rifles are made by, you know, like Sig Sauer, Colt, those various weapons are made. We have specialized weapons that are made for SWAT to allow us to breach open the door, you know, all those various different things. So the equipment has definitely evolved from that time frame because SWAT started to evolve.
So now moving from then to now, we have SWAT school today where, you know, all these SWAT operators and team members go through 2 weeks of rigorous training on top of all of their additional training. So what does that entail?
So when I first joined SWAT, you could actually go to a 40-hour SWAT school, basic SWAT. That was just to give you the basics, and then you would return back to your department and then continue your training. They wanted to standardize training, so the training then became 80 hours. So basic SWAT school has to be 80 hours to be certified. For us in California, there's two governing boards. We have NTOA, which is the National Tactical Officers Association, and they kind of make recommendations regarding what SWAT should be doing and not doing. And then we have Cano, which is the California Association of Tactical Officers. They also provide training, they provide classes, and they also provide their opinions as well as what we should be doing and not doing. But back then, in the 70s, no SWAT school. You received all your training on the job. Today, when you get selected for SWAT, like you know, we send you to SWAT school, and you know, people fail out. It's not just a pass class. You can fail out of SWAT school, and the SWAT school really doesn't care. And I've had many friends that went to SWAT school and they just couldn't pass it, and there's various different reasons why they don't pass it.
One of them is a big part of it is typically specifically like the shooting, because it's such an extensive and rigorous shooting course where you're out there like for hours all day shooting. And I mean, shooting gets exhausting after a while. I mean, you can only stare at a target and hold a gun for so long before your body just is tired.
A lot of people get disqualified for the shooting part as well as the physical part. Not so much the movement of going through rooms, it's the meeting the physical requirements. But going back to the shooting part, you got to remember is that you're wearing all that gear. I actually put on just my uniform, my boots, that is it. And I weighed myself and I came in at 160 pounds. I put my full kit on with the rifle and it went up to 220 pounds. Think about this, you're in SWAT school, you got that extra 60 to 70 pounds and now you're shooting all day long. You're gonna get tired. On top of it, you get flashbang, you get pepper sprayed, you're doing rappelling, all of these various different things in SWAT school. So that's why if you pass SWAT school, you should be pretty proud of yourself.
Going back to talking about SWAT school, what is the big difference between back then and now and how it's evolved and continuing to evolve?
Well, if you look at when SWAT first started, there were no schools. It was basically a bunch of guys saying, and I say guys because unfortunately at that particular time it was just males that had military experience and they trained themselves. There's a person, unfortunately he passed away, his name is Sid Hill. He's one of the ones that brought all of this training together. He helped to standardize the training. He helped to say that this is the equipment we need, the type of training we should have, these are the hours that you should train. Today we have state standards. The state says that you have to have this amount of hours of basic training. NTOA and Cano both say that for you to be a certain level SWAT team, you got to train this many hours per month, and these are the things that you need to do. And there's standards about how many drills you do on shooting, your physical agilities test.
Let's talk about requirements. I want to be a SWAT medic one day, so I already have a background as an EMT, but if you just want to be a regular operator or even a SWAT medic or any position on the SWAT team, what are some of the requirements that you have to have in order to apply or test?
You got to at least have a minimum experience as a police officer. We're not just putting new people on a SWAT team. Most SWAT teams, the average age, believe it or not, is over 40. We want people who are experienced. We want people who have gone through their younger ages and are now more responsible. They understand dedication more. It's not just about being physically fit. It's about the commitment that you make, the fact that you're going to be on call 24/7, that you're going to be training X amount of hours on duty as well as X amount of hours off duty. But generally, you just have to have a patrol officer show good judgment and then go through the testing process, which usually for most police departments now consists of an application, an interview, which usually consists of being interviewed by either the team leader, the team commander, and other members of the police department. Then you take a physical agility test and then a shooting test. And it's usually the shooting test that you're gonna have in class. And then from there, you get put on a list, and when your number comes up, you get to be a SWAT operator.
All the medical side of it's being incorporated and evolving too, so there's no telling how evolved this is gonna get.
SWAT never incorporated a medical component up until late 1970s with the LA County Sheriff's Department putting its first paramedics on a SWAT team. That was pretty significant, and actually they're one of the very few SWAT teams in the United States today that actually have paramedics who are SWAT operators as well. So that's kind of interesting as well. Not even the godfather of SWAT, LAPD, has that component as part of their SWAT team. So that is a little interesting. I hope you enjoyed this brief history of SWAT. If you like this type of content, you're going to definitely want to follow ShiftFire on both YouTube and Facebook.
Again, guys, I'm Jordan. Thanks for watching. Make sure you go follow ShiftFire and Chris the Cop here.
Peace. Also a SWAT operator of, oh, I'm sorry, all right, here we go. SWAT, just think of it's, welcome back ShiftFire, right? That's what they like, okay.